I would like to encourage everybody watching this to donate to Stella Morris's crowdfunder page. I would also like to say it is an honor to share the platform with Deepa, who has campaigned tirelessly on this issue. We need many, many more like Mo and Deepa out there doing the vital work. Now, to answer your question, I'd like to do something that I don't normally do, which is quote Donald Rumsfeld. So his quote is as follows: reports that say something hasn't happened are always interesting to me because, as we know, there are known knowns. There are things we know we know. We also know that there are known unknowns. That is to say, we know there are some things that we do not know, but there are also unknown unknowns, the ones we don't know we don't know. And if one looks throughout the history of our country and other free countries, it is the latter category that tends to be the difficult ones. Now, Julian Assange has done more than anyone in our lifetime to reveal the unknown unknowns of the powerful. And as Peter Gallison put it in the book Agnotology, the making and unmaking of ignorance, the classified universe is certainly not smaller and is very probably much larger than the unclassified one. If you look at the year the war on terror started, 2001, you see that there were 33 million classified actions taken by the US government. They spent about $5.5 billion to keep those classified documents secure. And as estimated by Peter Gallison in his chapter in that book, it's very likely that the classified documents in the world, the pages that are classified, outnumber the publicly available, readable pages of all languages. So that's quite an amazing idea when you think about it. And what it shows is that while WikiLeaks were responsible for making millions and millions and millions of files of documents publicly available, it was still only scratching the surface of an established system of secrecy. What did WikiLeaks reveal? Well, one of the things they revealed, as Catherine Gunn later did also do, that the State Department were asking diplomats, among them British diplomats, to spy on other diplomats, including even the Secretary General. And that went as far as trying to obtain the credit card numbers of other diplomats. It also revealed the bipartisan push from Obama, working alongside Republicans and hoping to come to the aid of Bush officials who seem to face criminal investigation for torture, for alleged torture in Spain. We also saw revealed by WikiLeaks the extent to which US intelligence agencies were hacking into iPhones and computers, and even had technology that could turn smart TVs into listening devices. The CIA, seemingly from WikiLeaks documents, were seeking to develop a technology that could hack into people's cars in order to carry out nearly undetectable assassinations. On the subject of MIA and her willingness to speak out and the seeming hesitance to speak out among other musicians, one of the things WikiLeaks revealed was the strong ties which exist between Sony and the US government. And while the liberals have certainly turned Julian Assange into public enemy number one in many ways due to the Podesta emails, let's not forget it was WikiLeaks that exposed ICE policies, including child and parent separation at the border with Mexico. WikiLeaks also revealed Pope Benedict impeding and interfering in an investigation into alleged child sex abuse within the Catholic Church in Ireland. Overall, WikiLeaks exposed documents that would have belonged to the Peruvian, the Kenyan, videos supposedly from the Chinese, documents from the Iranian, the German, the Syrian, the Saudi, the Yemeni, the Turkish, the Russian, the French, and the UAE governments. Now, for everything we hear, especially about several of those governments just listed, about how tyrannical those governments appear to be in the eyes of British and US foreign policy, it's not any of them that are attempting to kidnap Julian Assange. It's not any of them who kept him incarcerated for over a decade. What is it that they are seeking to prosecute him for? Well, strictly, it's the Afghan-Iraq war logs, the Guantanamo Bay documents, and the diplomatic cables between 2009 and 2011, as far as I understand. Now, what did WikiLeaks reveal about what was happening in Guantanamo Bay? Well, one of the things revealed was that the number of children that the US government are detaining in Guantanamo Bay illegally was 1.25 times more than they had previously acknowledged. They hadn't acknowledged that one of the children that they were detaining, in fact, two of the children that they were detaining were 13 years old at the time of detention in Guantanamo Bay. They didn't admit that there was one 14-year-old and there were three 15-year-olds. Now, one of the people who was revealed to have been detained at the age of 17, Yasser Talal al-Zahrani, killed himself at the age of 21 in his cell in Guantanamo Bay. This, as Deepa rightly emphasizes with the story of Khalid al-Masri, is the human side of what Julian and WikiLeaks did. They showed you the micro side of macro power in all of its gruesome ugliness and injustice. And it is for that reason that he is being targeted. Let's be clear. In the UK context, Robert Peston regularly does that which Julian Assange is being accused of doing. He cultivates sources within the corridors of power and then takes to Twitter and makes the announcement preceding the release of the news elsewhere. But no one is drawing any type of equivalence to what Robert Peston does and what Julian Assange did. When we look at the Spy Cops bill that has recently been passed and facilitated by the leader of the Labour Party, Sir Keir Starmer, when we look at the Overseas Forces bill, we see clearly that you have intelligence services and security state seeking complete, not only impunity, but unaccountability and invisibility. But what is that visibility reliant upon? It's reliant upon what they used to call the DSMA committee and now known as the D-Notice committee, whereby journalists go to the meeting and are told by civil servants what they would prefer them not to report. And it is in that way that journalists seek access through servility. And it was that Julian Assange struck back against. It is that he went against the grain on. And it is that is the reason he is being punished in the way he is today. We look at the extradition treaty that was negotiated in secret by the Tony Blair government and fast-tracked through in order to deal with the war on terror. The terrorist, in the context of the war on terror, represents a space of rightlessness. They can be detained, they can be extradited, they can be sent around the world to black sites and tortured because they don't have rights, because they occupy that space of rightlessness. And since 2007, the UK has sent 135 UK citizens to the US. A quarter of those people that were sent to the US were being sent for non-violent crimes. Now, in contrast to that, the United States has only surrendered 11 people to the UK. Let's not forget that in the spirit of bipartisan imperialism, both Mitch McConnell and Hillary Clinton have referred to Julian as a terrorist. Now, the law that was brought in by the Tories means that the Home Secretary, when giving final approval to extraditions, is not allowed to consider the human rights implications of that decision. Now, the judge was quite right when she said that he was at risk in the United States, because let's not forget that US prisoners are 5 times more likely than US citizens to commit suicide. So US prisoners that are inside the prisons are 5 times more likely than general population to kill themselves. And it was 5 years ago that the UN Working Group on Arbitrary Detention determined that Britain was illegally detaining Julian Assange. But But when we talk about the bipartisan intransigence, we see the killer of Harry Dunn and Assange being protected by both the Trump administration and the Biden administration. Now, the cutting off of Julian from the public imagination and from support of those in and around the establishment is seen very clearly in the recent refusal to give a video meeting to a group of 16 British MPs that goes across parties and even includes David Davis. This is to push back on a tide which is turning. We must be absolutely clear that the brilliant work of organizations like Declassified, the brilliant work by Deepa, by John Rees at the Don't Extradite, Assange, by yourself, Pablo, and yourself, Mo, and many others, has helped to determine the conditions outside of the court and thus will have some effect on what happens inside the court. We can't pretend that these things take place in a vacuum. Now, just to end, I wanted to talk about the question, which seems kind of unkind in retrospect, that was asked to the son of Daphne Caruana Galizia, who was the primary investigator of the Panama Papers, who was responsible for that. Following her assassination by car bomb in Malta, her son was asked, what is the best way to protect whistleblowers? His reply was the best way to protect them is to act on what they reveal. And so what we ask of all of those viewing this today is to act on what was revealed by Julian Assange and stand with him now. Because to stand with him is to stand with yourself and with those like you who believe that there is a public interest in knowing what the powerful are doing with our taxes.